Hi everyone, Rick here at Healing Field Farm. Today we wanted to talk about some things that we felt we could have done better when designing and building our tiny house shed conversion. So the first thing I would say is get a better idea of the costs of everything. Lumber wise, we had that pretty much on lockdown. We had a good idea what that was going to cost, and we were right about on the money. Plumbing wasn't all that expensive. It was only about $400 to $500 total for the plumbing, the fixtures, and such. The electrical, though, we kind of figured, well, it's a small space, and you're only going to need a few outlets and some wires and a box, and we're thinking $500 to $600. It ended up being closer to $1,100 to $1,200 because you're running different outlets. So you got some 15 amp, you got some 20 amp, you got some GFI. So those other outlets cost a little more. Same thing with your breakers. You might think some breakers cost $6 to $7, and some of them are 20, 30, some even 40. So that adds up quick. So what we thought was going to be, an easy $600, get all the electrical done, ended up being like $1,200 in just materials. So, and luckily we were fortunate to have help do the electrical. If we had to hire that out, it was probably going to be another $1,000 to $1,200 on top of that to get the electrical in. So we could have done a much better job of what our costs were going to be overall. That the electrical was probably the biggest hurdle, but everything else, we had a ballpark of what it was, and it came in close. Sometimes under, sometimes a little bit over. So the second thing I would say is the design or layout space. When we got the shell, we laid everything out in painter's tape on the floor. This wall is going to be here, this wall is going to be there, and we made a few tweaks as we went. What I would suggest doing is, if you don't have your shell, go outside, measure out the space, use spray paint, painter's tape, whatever, and lay out the size of the area that you're going to be living in. And then lay out all your walls or your countertops, bathroom fixtures and such. Then I would probably go and get some empty cardboard boxes and fill those spaces where you want your couch, where you want your bed, where you want your refrigerator, your toilet, your sink. And it will give you a really good idea of how the space flows and how you're going to move around in that space. Because as we started building sunrooms for the bathroom, for example, we've gone through two different tubs. We had a bigger jacuzzi tub that we had got on a deal, and it was just too big for the bathroom. So then we went with a standard tub, and it's still too big for the bathroom. We can get in there. It doesn't flow well. You have to kind of shimmy between a wall and the sink, and it's not a comfortable bathroom. So, and we will be changing that in the spring and putting in a stand-up shower, which will fix that problem very easily. But you don't really know your space until you're living in it, and you can build walls and it can look great, but once you start putting furniture and stuff in there, it gets small really fast. So just something to be aware of, just an idea on how you can plan better use of your space before actually building everything. Number three, placement of important needs, countertops, things to remember. You're going to get a stove. Well, it's not, that stove isn't just a box. That stove door is going to open. That refrigerator door is going to open. So it can't open into a wall. It can't open into a couch or a table. You have to have the room for those things. Our bathroom, we had originally planned on using this old wash basin that my wife had picked up. And then we decided to go with something we picked up at Lowe's, and it was a little smaller, but everything's there and sinks with it, and it was a good deal. So that's the route we went. But we had originally plumbed everything to fit that first basin we were going to use. So now we have the new bathroom countertop in there, and we're not using our space as best we can because of it. Also, an example, we got our wood stove, and when we went to see the builder, he had mentioned, where do we want the chimney? They normally put it 3 feet in from the wall, and we're thinking, yeah, that's fine. Well, it really isn't fine. It works, but we have this big stovepipe that runs from the stove and then out and then up. If we would have had them put it 2 feet closer to the wall, it would have almost been a straight shot. Would have saved some airspace in the living room. It just kind of makes it look a little bit funky. So having a good water source is important. We have a spring here on the property. We lucked out. There used to be an old barn right behind me out this window, and there was a spring underneath it, and the piping's all there, everything else. We did, however, have a really bad drought over the summer, so we couldn't really get much water out of it, and now it's winter and everything's pretty much frozen. So we haul our own water in. We have a 21-gallon storage container for the water. We bring it in like 5-gallon buckets. We go through maybe 30 gallons a day between 3 of us, between dishes and showers and such. But it hauling in water every day does get old quick. Not horrible, but when it's 2 degrees outside and you're out filling up buckets of water, it gets chilly. So we will be remedying that, but it is important to make sure that you have a good solid water source. That should be one of your main top priorities if you're building something on your own land. If you're in a regular tiny house, make sure that you have some place where you can get water to keep your storage tanks filled up. So when we framed everything in 2x4s. Well, I couldn't do anything else to it because we were waiting for plumbing and electrical. So I couldn't just sheetrock over it. Had to get the electrical in, had to get the electrical inspection approved before we could even sheetrock. So the problem with that is we did this in the summer. So this shed was just a shell. The only thing insulated was underneath, which is how we ordered it. So this thing was like a sauna all summer long, and all the wood just started to twist and turn. We blocked it. It still twisted and turned because it needed that sheetrock on there to help hold it, and it needed a better climate control on the inside. So we ended up spending extra because we had to cut portions of the walls out that twisted in order to replace it with good wood, and then get the sheetrock on it to keep it from moving. So my point and tip would be, make sure that when you are building your walls, like, you're not going to wait a month and a half until your plumbing and everything else comes. You need to line things up so that it happens quickly. Otherwise, you're just going to waste more money as you're waiting, because you're going to have to go back and redo stuff. So the sixth things you might not think of but are important, especially if you're buying a prefab shed or camp or something like that from a builder. Our doors do not have any flashing, and when we get a good rain, it comes in under the door. And that was something that we never thought of, because we just assumed, hey, you're putting a door in, you're going to flash it because that's how you build stuff. We thought wrong, because there is no flashing. And that is a issue that we've dealt with a couple times. We think we have it under control now with a lot of silicone caulk. but it's been a hassle. Something else is soffit vents, and you might not think it's important, but it is. So in a house like this, everything came, it was done. They didn't put soffit vents in. For why, I don't know. Seems to me it would have been simpler just to do it than the time they spent just boarding everything up. But what happened was we got a hard frost, got down to like 5 below one night. So all that moisture that goes up into the rafter area above the ceiling froze into the rafters. So then we get a warm spell of a couple days up in the 40s, and then our ceiling starts showering down on us because all that frost stuck to those rafters thawed out. So then we just had a stream pretty much the entire length of the house, just dripping from the ceiling. So soffit vents, very important. Make sure they're in your house. It's a quick fix. If maybe the builder doesn't do it, I'm sure if you go through a builder and you ask them, I'm sure they can put them in. It's really inexpensive to put in soffit vents, and it's something, especially in a tiny house or a smaller living space where there's going to be a lot of moisture, and it needs to get out, and it can't stay in. So, and that's what had happened. It just got trapped up there. So plan your plumbing accordingly. So we had gone through 2 different tub ideas, and we went with another one. Like I said before, we're gonna do the shower now, which really makes more sense in the long run. We don't need to take baths, and we'll be older in 20 years or so we're not going to be looking to climb over a tub. We'll be looking to get in and out. Another problem with the plumbing we had is we have a drain underneath the house, pretty much where all the water ties in. So on the cold nights, we can get under there, open up the valve, drain all the water lines. Won't have a problem with that. But what we didn't think of was freezing in the house. So my suggestion would be to put a drain in the house, preferably under your water heater, because the water stores in there. If you're using an on-demand water heater, it doesn't all just drain out every time you turn the pump off. It still stays in there, and it freezes and expands, and that's how you burst your pipe. So if you have a shut-off in the house, all you have to do is open it, drain it into a bucket, close it, you're done. So if it's outside the house, we got 2 feet of snow, I got to dig it out. I've got the whole house insulated underneath or around the house with insulation panels. I have to move the insulation panel. I got to get my hand up in there, open up that valve, drain out all the water. So it'd be much easier if it was in the house, especially like now we're going through a stretch of 10 days of below 0 temperatures. So it would be a lot easier if we could just do that in the bathroom every single night. So plan for storage. Your house, this house is 14 by 36. It's a good size house for what it is. We got rid of a lot of stuff before we made this venture and moved into the house, but you still have a lot of stuff regardless. You have clothes, you have your kids' toys, books, stuff like that. So you got to get really creative with storage. We use a lot of under bed storage. We slide stuff under the vacuum seal bag, stuff like that. We did put in a closet in our bedroom that wasn't really planned for in the beginning, and it kind of changed the whole shape of the bedroom, but it worked out fairly well. So we put up a lot of shelves, so utilize your wall space best you can, because we were living out of totes for a few weeks of all our pots and pans and stuff like that. So we've got it all a little bit more organized now where we can get to everything, and we also built a shed in the back for the seasonal stuff you're not going to use every day, like bikes in the middle of winter or Christmas trees and stuff like that. So you do need some kind of storage for that stuff. If you're living in a smaller space, or if you're on a tiny house on wheels, I would suggest built-in storage, benches, cabinets, stuff like that. The ninth thing, I would say, be sure of the fixtures in the house before the plumbing and the electrical. And I touched on this a little bit before with the bathroom. We went from the old basin that we were going to use to the new bathroom cabinet and sink. And we're wasting about 8 inches of space in the bathroom because of where that had to be located, because we originally planned to have the basin, we were going to put the sink on this side, and the pipe was going to run under. Well, the new one, it's everything centered, so you had to push it over, and now we're wasting 8 inches of space up against the wall. So we'll get that straightened out in the spring as well. We don't really want to tear into the bathroom in the middle of winter. It's just not going to be good, especially with the cold temps right now. So, but that's a big thing. Lay everything out. Know where you're going to want to put your stuff. It's very important, and it's going to save you a lot of headaches down the road. And the last thing I want to touch on is the flow of the house. It is a small space, and it needs to feel open, or you're going to feel overwhelmed. You're going to feel suffocating a little bit. An example, when we originally built the house, our bedroom was 2 bedrooms originally, and it made the kitchen like a 4-foot walkway. So granted, there's enough room to open all the doors to everything, but it's pretty uncomfortable when there's 2 people trying to get by each other, or you got 3 dogs waiting to get their food. And one's doing dishes and the other one's prepping dinner. It gets really tight, and that's why we remodeled and opened it up a little bit more. You have to have an idea of how big of an appliance or the appliances you're going to use. Could be we go with a smaller fridge. We did that. We chose that we didn't need a 18 cubic fridge. There's only 3 of us. We hit the store for whatever we need every couple days. And the store's right down the street if we're in a hurry and need something like a gallon of milk, something like that. So we don't have to have tons and tons of food on hand. So you don't need the bigger fridge. I had mentioned yesterday that we are going to get a bigger freezer, but we're also going to have a lot of animals, and when it comes butchering time, that's where that needs to go. So that makes better sense to use the space for that versus a fridge. We are getting a stove, but we're getting a smaller one than normal. It'll still hold a 10, 15-pound turkey, and that's all we really need. We're not professional cooks or anything, so we don't need a big giant stove. Yes, it'd be nice, but sometimes you give up on some luxuries to have the basic needs. So, and we've actually gone without a stove up until this point, using air fryer, Instapot, griddle, just a plug-in burner, and everything's worked fine. So you don't necessarily even need a stove. We even talked about just doing a conventional oven to save space, but ultimately it would be nice to have some burners. Make sure how your doors open. Make sure that there's going to be space. The layout of the house is really the most important thing. We plan on doing the sliding barn doors in all the doorways. There's only 3 in the house, so we're going to do that versus a more conventional door, because it's going to save up a lot more room just sliding a door over than it is opening it and not having something behind it or anything like that. So the flow of the house is, I would say, one of the most important things to consider when planning or designing your house. You don't want to get in there and spend hours and hours and hours remodeling and moving walls to make it more spacious. Lay it out. You use the boxes like I said earlier. Fill those spaces. Get a feel for what it's going to be like. Leave it that way for a couple days before you do anything. Just kind of really walk around and sit and get a feel for what that space is going to be like. So again, thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this, please subscribe and like below, and we'll talk soon.